Welcome back to the Rachel LaFour Show. It is that time. I just panicked. Sorry. If you're watching this, I looked down at the mic where I was like, wait, is it working? Is it working? I'm pretty sure it is. How are you? How are you? You're just like driving somewhere cool or just like, on like a treadmill or your Peloton and you're just like living your best life. So wherever you are, um, howdy doody. How are you? It's August, and I have been just luxuriating in the energy of August. If you're a big astrology, new age person, you may have known that there was like the Lion's Gate that we're in, which is typically 8-8 is the idea, but really it's kind of this whole energy of the transition from really from summer into the equinox. So it's really kind of these 2 weeks, but the energy can even carry us into the fall equinox. So it's kind of this end of, the high days of summer. And I feel like I've always slept on August. I got to be honest with you, because I feel like it was always like, May is a big month for me. It's spring. It's my birthday. Like I've always just really, there's a lot of great energy kind of like for me personally in May, and I think for us as a collective. And then you're coming out of Aries season where it's like go go go, and then you just kind of have this like nice little like respite, in May. And then I feel like June is always off to the races, and it's all these different, there's graduation parties and travel and all of these things. And then it's like July, and then July 4th, and like you just gotta go. And now with my oldest son, like his birthday is in July. So there's just all these things to do. And so I feel like by the time I get to August, I'm like, I'm just waiting for September, baby. Like that's always been the vibe. And now I'm like, girl, August is where it's at. It feels like, when you have an itch to like buy something new for your home and you make a smarter choice, which is like, let me just rearrange some shit and like kind of revive something where it's like, oh, I've had that on that shelf for a long time. But then if you move it, it's like, oh, it feels new. That's how I feel about looking at August, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I've been sleeping on you. Like, what a vibe. And I'm here for it. So I just made August all about realignment, regeneration, and just play. Like wanting to have those things that are more quote unquote, I feel like serious. Like the idea of like realignment always feels like this thing that has to be like serious, and it's like rest, and we have to rest. And there's just, like white women in leggings, just like yelling at you. Like that's how I feel when I think about the word alignment or integration. And I was like, but why? Remember, I think it was last week where I talked about that. I was like, but also when we do things from a place of play, we integrate them so much faster. So, because of those things, I've decided two things. One, I wanted to share with you my new life mantra, LKL, low key luxury. Pause on that. And then I'm going to make today a spiritual grab bag. Oh, how does she do it? Remember, if you were a big Sanrio fan, maybe some of you are like elated by me saying that, and some of you are like, oh, okay, nerd. But when I was little, the Sanrio, which if you're not familiar, that's like the company that does Hello Kitty. And so they used to have a small shop at our mall, and I was like obsessed. I had like everything like Hello Kitty, and then I had Karopi, which was the frog, for those of you who like are my OG fans. I know there was like a penguin. I was never big into the penguin, but Karopi I was really into. So anyway, I used to love going because they had grab bags where it was like in a paper bag and stapled, and they were like $5, and you didn't know what was going to be in it. And so it always felt like a risk, because you're like, I don't know, there could be something that like I love in there, or you get something, you're like, well, that's like not fun. It's not what I wanted. But I always remember going to the mall with my dad, and like that was the thing. Like I would go in the Sanrio store, and sometimes I would get one of those grab bags. And I was just thinking about how much joy that brought me, and I was like, what if we do that today? Like I was like, I don't think I have to like pick a thing and be like, this is what's like I'm really inspired by right now, and like I'm Rachel LaForce. Like I'm working on embracing feminine, embracing a sense of play, and like work smarter, not harder. So hopefully you're on my wavelength. I'm really excited today to do the grab bag. But first, I just want to drop this idea in your head of LKL because I'm into it. So I will forever be obsessed with the Olsen twins, not to the like extent where it's my personality. We all know those people. But I do love the Olsen twins. And so they like, capitalized on this whole idea of like quiet luxury. Like that's kind of like their whole brand, which I can appreciate because they're billionaires, but they're still like, yeah, but I'm just going to wear like a blanket, And so I can appreciate that because here's like, okay, let me tell you like an actual Rachel Forrest, like judgmental thing. I find a lot of times people with quote unquote money, I think it's so boring. Where I'm like, the most interesting thing that you could think to buy was like whatever handbag everybody else has. Like, when I have that kind of money, it's going to be way more interesting. Okay. I'm not saying I'm going to like buy a dolphin or something insane, but like, I just find a lot of times people only chase let me say this, as I've changed my relationship with money, I've noticed a lot of what inferred my relationships or blocks around money was because my judgments around a lot of the ways that people handle money, how they engage with it. And I was like, but a lot of people I know that have money, like, I don't want to be those people. I think they suck. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. You can also have like a lot of money and be super cool and also like give back to your community and like do really great wonderful things with your wealth. So that's what I appreciate about the idea of quiet luxury. I'm not saying that like the Olsen twins, are, I don't know, or like good. I don't know. I don't know them. Shocker. I couldn't even imagine having a conversation with the Olsen twins, to be honest with you. But I was reading about that and I was like, man, I really love that take. And I've been doing that a lot in my house. This idea of, or I was like, I'm going to do my own spin on it. And it's just like low key luxury. Like, what are the things that make your day to day life feel luxurious, right? We all know this. It's like drink the nice bottle of champagne that you have and like light the fancy candle. And I've always appreciated that, but I'm like, well, but you still don't want to, the candle was $60. I'm not just like going to like burn that while I make a grilled cheese. You know what I mean? What are we? Do we have class or what? And now I'm like, yeah, like I'm the idiot who spent $60 on a beeswax candle. Like light that bitch up. You know what I mean? So I've found all of these ways. If you follow me on Instagram, I've been like making these very elaborate, like breakfast and lunches. And like, I love sharing all that stuff with, my audience there and all my friends there. And, that's just kind of be the thing where I'm like, yeah, let's let this idea of you guys know Remington Donovan, who's one of my mentors and friends, and he wrote a book on prosperity. He's also been on this podcast before, and that's a big thing where it's like in order to if you're looking at it from an idea of manifestation, right? If that's something that you want, if you're visualizing it, but you also want to have that feeling, how can you create a world for yourself that is more prosperous? Even if you're like, well, Rachel, I have a 1-bedroom apartment right now, and like, the Hollywood's on strike, like I'm not working, whatever. You clean your room. Clean your room. Like there are these things that create this idea of, my new LKL, as I say, this low key luxury for yourself where it's like buy a plant, put a plant in the sun. It's like these things that are so simple, but really shift your, I hate them to like shift your vibe, but that's all that came up. That's what it is. That really helps to create this mood of luxury and comfort. Like I'm really big on like hygge culture. If you're not familiar, look it up. It's Swedish or Danish, and it's just all about kind of like creating like a coziness, And so a lot of the ways that I practice this on my own is now is like, as you noticed today, maybe you haven't, but thank you so much, is like doing my hair. Take the time and like take a moment, even if like you're super busy, like y'all, I'm not going to bore you of being like, here are all the things like I'm doing right now. Like my life is hard. We all have things that we're going through, but it's difficult for me right now to make the time to feel luxurious in my clothes and my things. And I'm like, I've done a lot to curate a wardrobe that I love and I feel good about. And I'm like, well, what's it worth if I'm not wearing it? But I'm like, well, I'm not leaving the house, so it's fine to just, throw on leggings or whatever. But again, these small prosperity practices really, even if they feel silly, are really opening up this, dare I say, frequency to bring you more and more luxury. So take that however you want, but I'm gonna be sharing some of that stuff on my socials too, of like all of the ways that I create LKL in my own life. So plants, fresh flowers, candles. I love leaving out bowls of fruit. Fruit is super abundant and rich. And even if like you're like, I don't have a bunch of money or I don't do fruit or whatever, like buy even like a bag of like plastic lemons off Amazon or something, and like keep them nice and clean. So not that they're going to get like gross and dusty, but it's like put them in a bowl, put them somewhere where like the sun shines on them, like bring a little bit of like color and just that feeling of like oomph. So that's something that I've been incorporating, and I'm sure the more and the longer that I do that, I'll have more to talk on that with you about. But I just wanted to share that with you, if this is a new kind of practice for myself of something I'm wanting to do, of giving myself more luxury in a way that is simple and easy, and it doesn't feel like Issa Rae's yacht. Like it doesn't have to be this you know saved for special occasions. It can be what is something daily that you can give yourself and surround yourself in luxury, in whatever that means to you. So there you go. All right, here we go. We're going to start our grab bag, our spiritual grab bag. So how I saw this going is I was just going to pick a card. I don't necessarily have even anything like on my mind. I was like, this is where I'm really trusting my guides and my ancestors. So don't make me look like a fool. As she says into the ether. So yeah, I'm just going to pull maybe a card or two and just kind of see what messages I download, what pops up. We're just going to have fun. It's going to be playful and silly. So if you came for really big Rachel Force inspiration, it might not be this episode. Okay. I don't know. It's a grab bag. Remember, it's Sanrio. You might open it and you're going to get a bunch of cool stuff, or you might get like the penguin character you don't really care about and you're going to trade for somebody at lunch. So that's what we're going to do. I also intuitively bought this book at the thrift store yesterday. This is called Gift from the Sea. I don't know anything about this woman, but I was very drawn to the book. And I had picked it up and I just like opened it to a page, and the page that I read, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, intuition, I see you. Like it was like everything in the moment that I needed to hear, where I was like, we should all just leave and go have a picnic. You know what I mean? Life is not so hard. So I also thought I was going to do something like that, where maybe we'll just pick a random passage and kind of like meditate on that. So let's have some fun. Transition music, transition music, transition music. Okay. That's a bit. If you're like, what is she saying? Okay. So again, this is my Rebecca Campbell Oracle deck. Work your light. Again, I've been incorporating a lot more feminine energies. We'll spend a different episode talking about my shadow side. Fun for everybody. Talk about getting vulnerable. But I've found there's just a lot of things surrounding the idea of the feminine that trigger me, that come up for me a lot. And I've just really started to pay attention to them and suss out like why I feel that way, what these things are coming up for, and what are the other parts of it that I can embrace even more. So I just felt very drawn to this deck today. I also want to get a few more of her decks as well. But all right, I'm going to go silent on you here for a second and just say a quick prayer for myself and for us. So during this moment of silence, if you want to ask your guides or pray or blow your nose, that's up to you. All right, here we go. Okay, here we go. Let's see what we got. It's just Vegas, but with oracle cards. All right, let's see. So our first card is answer the call. What is your soul calling you to do? Try to let you see this card a little bit if you can. Okay, so answer the call. What is your soul calling you to do? And pull one more. And the second one is share your voice. Share your voice. Come out of the cave, persecution, expression. Okay. I feel like these are very Rachel LaForce cards. So, grab bag. Here we go. She got the Karopi. I think that's what just happened. Okay. So answer the call. I know that you guys can't see this card, but just describe it to you because everybody loves that. Just an auditory lesson. So it's really of this beautiful young woman, and she has roses in her hair and this beautiful, like, kind of cloak that almost feels like a cloak of protection. And it's interesting to me because it's covering her shoulders, but it's open on like her heart center. And she's kind of sitting almost up perched, it feels like in between all of these crystals and clouds. And there's a lot of like water and waterfalls. And so it just feels like she's kind of in this place of stillness, but what is around her doesn't feel still. It feels very much alive. But it feels as though that she's kind of gone to this place of like, where can I best hear what it is that I need to hear? Especially if this is the idea of like answering the call. Sometimes it's really hard to do when everything is so loud and everything is so fast. And then sometimes when we hear the call and then we don't like it, and so it's almost like we do the opposite, which is like everything we can to drown it out. And I don't want to say that everybody always knows what their calling is, but I would say, at least in my experience, and when I coach folks and when I work with them and when I do energy readings, I feel like people do always know. That doesn't mean that you know what. Also, if you're watching this, I do have my eyes closed. That's just because I can transmit messages easier. So if you're like, why are her eyes closed? I don't have like something in my eye. It's how I focus. Okay. I find a lot of times when I'm coaching people that they always know, meaning like you may not know where it's going to end up, but theoretically what the first step is. And the reason that I know this is because typically when I'm giving somebody information, like from an energy read or something, and then my eyes are typically closed and I open them and I look at them and I say, does any of that resonate? And I'm grateful to say at this point, 99.9% of the time, they're like, yeah, that's spot on. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's not that I knew something you don't. It's that I've been able to articulate something back to you that perhaps has felt too loud, or again, we've been running from it, but it's like, but you always know. And sometimes we need to this is the thing that I'm doing in my own life of like really trying to get disciplined. Sorry, I have like a hair somewhere that's in my mouth. Okay. Oh, what a charmer. Okay. I'm really trying to get dedicated about having moments throughout my day that bring me back to my intention so that I can get really clear on hearing that call. Because here's what I mean. some people, yeah, you may be in a phase of your life right now where like you're single, you work from home, you have like an altar set up and you like, and it's just you. And like, you may have the capacity right now to have a space where you meditate for 30 minutes in the morning and then you journal for an hour and then you draw about what you journaled. And like, I say it somewhat condescendingly, but mostly just because like that sounds like a fucking dream. But you also may not be in that space. I'm not in that space right now where I have that opportunity to do so. So again, incorporating this idea of the low key luxury is also, how can I come back to the calling? How can I create moments within my day that bring me back to center, that bring me back to that place of, heart open and listening for what that calling is? Because the that's interesting. I feel like the call a lot of time also, it feels like it comes in like scam likely, meaning like scam likely will call you over and over and over again, and it feels the same way where like however you identify, whether it's like you have your relationship with God and in a more like traditional wording or language, or you are again, whatever you identify in the words in which you connect to your higher power and whatever that means to you, or maybe you don't even necessarily believe in a higher power yet, but you are developing your personal development and whatever that means to you. The way I identify it is the universe will try to get the message to you in as many ways as possible. But a lot of times it's not going to come out and go, I'm the thing, I'm what you're supposed to hear. It's not going to do that. It needs you to work a little bit. And that's the thing. Like it's the only time that I kind of get on people sometimes when they come to me, because if you come to me to want to work, whether it's through an energy read or coaching or consulting or whatever, or even as a friend, my friends that come to me and it's like, whoa, oh, hum, ho, hum, or like this, it's okay to console yourself and be there for yourself and love on yourself when things are tough. I'm not saying like tough love. I mean, certainly love on yourself and give yourself grace. But when you become the victim, it's like, for me, without having to choose my words wisely, like I don't have energy for that. I don't have time for that, because there's nothing I can do to help you, because you already feel as though you do not have any power. And I'm not interested in helping you find it in that way. I'm interested in helping you strengthen that power. And so one of the ways in which we can do that is reconnecting with it. I find it really interesting. Rami Youssef is a great actor, comedian, and stand-up. And he's a very spiritual and religious guy. He's Muslim, and he talks about, they pray multiple times a day. And he has a lot of really interesting things to say about that. And again, I'm butchering his beautiful thing that he shared. But in a nutshell, he was like, one of the reasons that we go back to pray, I believe it's 5 times a day, and I apologize if that's not correct, but let's say it's 5, is because how quickly we forget. Meaning how quickly throughout the day we forget what our intention is. We forget that we are God, that God is within us, and that we almost have to go back to stillness that many times in a day. And it's not because, and I'll add this, it's not like, oh, we're humans, we're such pieces of shit, like, oh, the flesh, or oh, the ego. It's just as simple, I think, especially in the world that we live in now. It's loud, it's busy, and it's more and more and more and more. And so I loved that share from him so much, because the idea of like, to really answer the call, sometimes like you got to go back in and check in with that to really get aligned. And so that is everything that I have on that card. And let's see what the book says. Here we go. Answer the call. Your guidance is divinely guided. You are being called to answer the call of your soul. It might be scary. It might not make sense. But if you trust your soul's yearning, you will live a life beyond what your mind could possibly imagine. Answering your soul's calling is not a one-time thing, but rather a lifelong dance. Deep down, you already know what you long for, what your soul yearns for. Whatever you're called to do, that is your calling. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for permission. Just say yes. Most people are waiting for a step-by-step plan before they take the first step, but intuition doesn't work like that. It takes faith and courage to answer the call of your soul. And that's why most people don't do it, but you are not most people. You are in exactly the right place to answer your calling now. You don't need to know the whole plan. You don't even need to know where it's leading. You just need to take the next step. No one has ever had the complete perfect plan. There is no end destination. There is no right or wrong way to do it. And you do not need permission from anyone else. Sometimes the more resistance we have around answering a soul calling, the more important it is for our soul's growth. Yeah. One sentence that I want to go back in here, which is, it takes faith and courage to answer the calls of your soul. I am still in that process of, can he be more brave? Can he be more brave? Can he be more brave? To me, it feels like people who love a cold plunge. Oh, do they love it? But that idea of like, okay, can you step in? Can you step in? Can you step in again? Can you stay in a little bit longer? Can you go up to your knees? Can you go up to your hips? Can you go up to, like, how can you grow in that way? Because I think a lot of the ways in which I've quote unquote failed at different times in my life is because either ego wise, I felt like whatever the step was in front of me, I was above that. Well, I'm not going to go and be a writer's assistant for $11.99 an hour. Look at how talented I am. I'm not going to do that because I've already decided, oh, I'm going to do all of these things and look at all this magic I'm going to create. Okay. Do the thing that's in front of you. Shovel the dirt. Because there is such spiritual lessons and actual of the earth lessons to learn in the step that's in front of you. So that's so much of the time why we miss out, because we see this big vision and we know what it is. And it's like, great. It's so classic. You got the blueprints, not everybody else. And I hate to break it to you, but as magical and wonderful as you are, so is every other being on this planet, whether they recognize it or not. So when you hold yourself back because whatever the first step is, whether it's because you think that you're above it, which is what's happened to me, or it feels too overwhelming or too scary of like, well, I couldn't do that. But I guarantee you, whatever the first step is actually the easiest part, despite it feeling so overwhelming. But I would just love to share with you that the more that I've taken these steps bit by bit by bit by bit, each step that you take after that gets easier and easier. And I was thinking about this the other day where I was like, as I'm still grieving kind of what I thought my career was going to look like. And I'm in this place of like, okay, how is this all going to like, where is this going? Like so much of my check-in time is going, okay, I am blindly trusting just all of you. Okay. My guides, my ancestors, the moon, we're really just hoping that this all works out. Okay. So let's start putting some of these pieces together. Shall we, star beings? Okay. So I understand that fear of going, I'm following each step and I don't see where they all connect yet. But I was thinking where I'm like, well, what would be the opposite? What a boring fucking story if it's like, and she went on the audition, got the thing, and never looked back again. Like, that's boring. It's boring. Like if somebody was like, oh, watch this show. And you're like, oh, how many seasons is it? It's like, well, no, it's only one episode. What do you mean it's only one episode? Well, they go and then they like get the thing. You'd be like, well, that's boring, right? Like we want multiple episodes. We want cliffhangers. We want, to know where the story is going. We want peaks and valleys. So it's like, allow your life to be that. You don't have to know. And I know that's so difficult to let go of, but when you do, when you let go of that need to know where it's going, you can engage in it in a way that feels, I think that is that idea of like, when you always hear of like co-create with the universe, co-create with the universe. For years, I've been like, I'm still not even sure what that means. And now I'm like, oh, that's what it means. I hear the calling. I just do the thing. Like that's it. It's air traffic control. I'm up in the airplane and they're down going, okay, great. Do this, do that, do this. I don't need to be in the plane going, okay, where are we going? Okay. It's like, no, just tell me where to go. Okay. I'm going to do the thing. And then it creates this sense of like fun and excitement because you're like, I don't know where this is going to lead. And I do, I also do feel like your again, your guides or your God or, however you identify, there are breadcrumbs along the way to go, you're in the right place. you're in the right place. You're doing it. And I don't need to define those for you, because I know if you're listening to this podcast, you've had those before for yourself, where you feel them and you're like, I'm in the right place. It's just that feeling of, I wish there was a word for it, of like, it is just, it's not bliss, but I think in the human experience, which just constantly feels, dare I say, fucked, it's those brief moments where you're like connected. That's the only word I can think to describe it. Connected. All right. She talked it to death. Did she not? Okay. Here we go. This is the next card. And I feel like these cards just totally go together. So it's kind of more of the same, which, I mean, of course they go together. We've learned that when I do card pulls on this podcast. So I don't know why I continue to be surprised. This is Share Your Voice. And I was trying to find, let's look it up here. Share your voice, share your voice, share your voice. Page 76. Okay. All right, we'll read that in a second. So this, again, it's interesting that the setup of these two women, they're both in similar spaces. So I don't think that you can really see those, but you can see that they're both sitting, perched, listening. And it's interesting because this gal in the Share Your Voice, I feel like she's in this cave, which I think about, and that's reverberation. I feel like, if you go into a cave and you're like, hello, hello, right? And that's fun because you can hear your voice echo, and it's like, wow, nature's microphone. Or maybe you're cool and you wouldn't say something like that. But so that's something that's interesting to me, that she's sitting out to face the world. But yeah, she's in this cave, but she's not all the way back in the cave. She's right at like the lip where it goes out. So again, this idea of where even on this card, it says come out of the cave, persecution and expression. So it's like right there on that threshold of like, if you are on that threshold, like let her rip, let her ride, baby. Like you're already right there, where it's like I think that's the other thing of we don't have to. I encourage you to be so courageous, where it's like, if you've already gotten to that spot where it's like, you know your soul's calling, what the next step is, or what the first step is, and you're already right there, like you're already at the edge. It's like, you're already exposed, where it's like, come on up, come out with your hands up. Like if you're walking out of that cave, like you are already exposed to the elements, you are already there. So it's like, you might as well let her rip. And I think what's so interesting is the more that you put one foot in front of the other in step of whatever your calling is and share your voice, and whatever that means. Again, sharing your voice doesn't necessarily mean where it's like, now you have to have a podcast, or, it may be as simple as like, maybe you're the one in your family who, always stays silent. I'm going to take on the brunt for everybody else. I'm going to take it on. I'm going to take it on and take it on. Maybe you're that person, or, maybe you are in a work environment and you're like, I know this isn't working and I know the thing that'll fix it, but I'm scared to speak up, or maybe it's above my pay grade and I'm not supposed to talk or whatever. It's like, share your voice, And if I know that you guys know this, but it's like, if you're scared to share your voice because you don't know what the outcome is, and maybe it's going to piss some people off, or, it's going to cause you to be like, fuck, I got to leave this relationship, or I got to leave this job or whatever. It's like, let her rip, put your hands up in the air. It's like, you are already exposed. You're already there and you already know. And it's like, if you, it comes to this element of like trust. That's that, again, that answering the call, going back to it. How many times in the day can you go back to what that place of connection is? Because, that muscle, that sense of connection, that connectedness to yourself or your higher power, whatever that is, that has to get stronger than everything that's outside. Because otherwise, what is it? Stand for something or you'll fall for anything, right? Just like a poster in a detention center or something. But detention center. Anyway, so you do, it's that's the sense of, I've noticed that I've in my integration and kind of this quote unquote leveling up and getting ready for what's next and being in this really truthfully, all of the old parts of myself have completely burnt off now, and navigating the world, both being in the world and of it, right? Which is why I love comedy and these other things that feel very human in so many ways that kind of keep me grounded and connected. And then how can I use that tool and also feel very, ethereal and connected and feminine and my highest expression. And the only way that I can do that is to stay connected to myself, so that if I get in a situation with people where I'm like, oh, these people don't operate like me. And that's not a judgment, but it's simply like, oh, I feel like I'm not going to be understood, or they're going to think I'm weird, or these aren't my people, or whatever. The more that I'm connected to what is the calling, the more that I answer the scam likely, the more that I'm there, that I'm able to come out of the cave. I'm able to share my voice. And even if you're like, oh, I was sharing, then I got scared, and then, it's like I went back into the cave, like that's the great thing. You're always welcome to walk back out. And the other interesting thing to me about a cave is that it's dark. And when you get to that, the closer and closer you get to the opening, you get more and more light. It's not the opposite. It's not like being in a cave and hiding and whatever that means to you. It's not like, oh, it was this perfect situation, and now, it's like, oh, now I'm like walking out and it's dark and it's scary. No, it's quite the opposite. It's asking you, it's calling you to come out of the cave. That's our grab bag, baby. All right, let's read this. Share your voice, and then we'll wrap it up. Share your voice. Come out of the cave. Persecution, expression. You're being called to share your voice, perhaps by speaking up in a relationship or through writing, speaking, singing, or some other form of creative expression. We each hold a deep truth within us that longs to be expressed, sculpted for lifetimes. The voice of your soul is like no other. It carries with it wisdom that can only be gained through soul history and growth. Soul history. What a great name for a podcast. Okay. By remembering, tapping into, and expressing this unique tone, we not only heal ourselves, but we also heal the planet at large. When you share your voice, you unlock something in the universe and call a missing piece of you home. Your individual voice is the most powerful sound current on the planet. If you've kept your soul's voice silent or held back, chanting or singing could be truly life-changing for you. As we shed the layers of our personality and start letting our unique soul speak through us, we discover that we actually have a very clear message that longs to be shared. So the more we speak, the clearer it gets. There has never been a better time in history than right now to speak up, share your truth, and share your soul's voice. If you feel fearful, know that you are not alone and that the world needs your unique tone in order to harmonize. As we each rise up and share our song, we make it easier for the next person to do the same. Ways to activate your light, express yourself, share your voice, and speak to those who can hear you. One thing I want to circle back on here is where it says, the world needs your unique tone in order to harmonize. Two things on that. One thing I've been thinking a lot about is all of the old versions of myself that I've grieved or I think about and I like cringe and I feel bad for, like, oh my God, I can't believe I couldn't stand up for myself, or that I thought I wasn't worthy, and all these like feelings come up of sadness and anger and all these things. And I was like, well, I can't go back and fix that. But what I can do now is do what I can now and hold her hand. And that's what I can do. And go, it's okay that we didn't do it then, but we're doing it now. So we do right. We rewrite our history. We rewrite our future by acting now. The difference was then I didn't know any better, or however you define it, right? I didn't know any better at the time. And now I do. I know a different way. I've created a different way. So we do different. Also, when you have these amazing, unique, beautiful gifts, I find it is almost, because when I get scared of like, I don't want people to think that I'm arrogant. That's always like a core negative belief for me. I don't want people to think I'm too loud. I don't want them to think I'm arrogant. And it's like, which I mean, it's a whole podcast for a different day of like why women can't be confident, but who's got time? Okay. But the idea of I am doing the divine a disservice. I am being disrespectful to the divine by not allowing my gifts to rise to the level of intelligence that they are able to. So that's how I feel now, where it's like, it's not even, yes, as Rachel, I want to feel confident, but it almost feels this way of like, it's almost very Greek in a way of, of appeasing the gods, of almost like, how dare I be, again, it's like I could have been born in any other time in history, and who knows, maybe I was. Okay. Past lives. But to be born right now, and it's like, these are the divine gifts that I've been given. And so who am I to say like, oh, I don't want to shine, or, oh, I don't want to share. Oh, I don't want anybody. Everybody should be doing it. Everybody, it's not me saying I'm special. It's me going, if I can, you can too. Why are we not? Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. And also, on a funny note, the thing that you'll notice is you'll get loud to where you're like, oh, well, certainly people will start to not like me, or they'll unfollow me, or people will want to break up with me if I become more and more myself. And you'll notice how many people don't even fucking notice you. And can I tell you, what a great thing. What a great thing, because it makes you realize where it's like, you are so insignificant. Not everybody's paying attention. It's really not that big of a deal. Stay in your lane, connect with yourself, and share your voice, right? Don't overthink it. All right, guys, I was going to share from my gift from the sea book, but I feel like that feels very connected and together. I also love that both of these are very similar in color palette. So, and I'll tell you now, I'm not much of a pastel gal, but I was very attracted to both of those. So I hope that you've enjoyed this spiritual grab bag episode. This was really fun for me because I was just like, I keep talking about wanting to do more elements of play, and I'm also wanting to strengthen my own spiritual gifts. So I'm actually, I want to share with you, I've shifted some of my work a little bit. So I was doing a lot of like long-term coaching. And actually after doing that, I've found I don't think that works for me. And here's why. I think, well, I don't want to shit on other coaches. I don't know what they do. What I have found is I think it is very rare that someone needs my voice with them for an extended period of time. Meaning a lot of times, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm so good at what I do, I think I work myself out of time. I'm not kidding. I had one session with somebody, we were 15 minutes into it, and she goes, oh my God, that's it. Like this whole light bulb went off, and she goes, I think that's it. And I was like, yeah, I think we solved it. Like, I was like, this is good. She's good. She's good at what she does. Obviously, it also requires that person to be honest and open and everything. So I'm being silly, but it really is true that I think when I am working at the top of my intelligence, and I am really, and also connecting, because again, this is all channeled. This is not Rachel LaForce. Okay, this is well beyond me. But when I am doing what it is I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm working in service of people, I think a lot of people are going to come to conclusions on their own a lot quicker. And I also think this space of integration, sometimes we get such a heavy download when I'm working with people. I'm like, you need to go for a month, integrate those things, then come back. Then let's see where we are. So I'm so happy to offer like, long-term retainers, but I have found, at least with the folks that I've been attracting and how I feel my workflow is, I don't think that that's necessary. So I'm really going to be offering more. I'm also kind of changing the word from coach to guide, which I don't like the word guide because it just feels very new agey, but that actually feels like what it is, where I'm like, you already know. I'm just here to kind of guide you along. I'm really just here to remind you of the things that you already know and help set you up in a way that you can take what it is that you already know and like just fucking fly. So I'm changing a lot of those. And then again, I'm also going to start offering energy reads. Just call it what it is. A lot of that is what I do in my coaching and consulting work. But I was like, well, energy, that's reserved for like energy healers and energy workers. And after getting off of calls with people where my entire body is electrified, I have to like nap or take a shower, and I have so much energy buzzing around my body, like I'd get lightheaded. I'm like, dude, you're doing energy work. Like, let's just call it what it is, you Looney Tune. And again, that's my own being scared to share my voice. Like, well, how could I possibly be a comedian, but then also be an energy healer? And it's like, because anything is possible, you idiot. Why are you making this about you? So those are kind of the new offerings of all of that coming out. So this was a really fun way to just kind of even keep strengthening that. And again, let it be fun. Let it be fun. Let it be fun. So as you're stepping into these things and you're trying things that are new and you're trying things that's scary, I hope that you remember me and you remember this grab bag episode, and may it serve for you as an anchor. May it serve for you as a megaphone and the reminder to ground yourself and share your voice, because we need your unique tone to harmonize. I am humbled and honored that you're here. All of your shares, your messages, your DMs. It is slow and steady. And like I said, I don't know what the fuck we're building, but I'm telling you what, it's going to be big and it's going to be fun. So you guys are my OGs, and I am so grateful for this community. As always, if you have any questions, you can email me, rachel@rachelleforce.com. All collaborations, any of that good stuff can go through there, and you're always welcome to DM me on any of the platforms. Please be well, take care of yourself, enjoy this August energy wherever you are in the world. Stay in it, stay light. Love you, mean it.